And if you guys can learn how to actually think for yourself instead of being manipulated, one thing that people, I think, should be taking more advantage of, and if they were to take more advantage of this, I think that they would see a lot more happiness and joy and fulfillment in their lives, is their ability to think. Americans have the freedom that is, I would say, an unknown freedom, or an unappreciated and ungrateful freedom, because we have the ability to think. There's kind of like a saying when you're growing up that's kind of like derogatory, where you say, oh, you're one of those think for yourself kind of guys. It's almost like opposite. It's cooler to be someone that actually is on the inside that thinks like everybody else. We call that groupthink. And I'll tell you this, that I was definitely the one on the outside that didn't think like everybody else, that questioned things. And that, I would say, unfortunately, that made me less popular, or more popular, I guess, in bad ways rather than good ways, because I would question how the coach wanted to run a play. I would question why we would be running 10 miles a day instead of practicing drills on the baseball field. I would be questioning things like that. I guess you could say I didn't fit in. And one of the things that I've noticed in highly successful entrepreneurs in the US and around the world is they don't think outside the box. They don't think there is a box. They're not conforming to groupthink. And one of the things that I would say that is so prevalent in my life is I just question things. The political side might not be the most triggering, but let's say I was a Democrat. Well, I want to go look at what the Republicans are saying or what the libertarians are saying. I want to understand the opposing arguments. The ability to think for yourself is one of the most undervalued, underutilized strengths that Americans get to have. I call it Hitlerized, because if you look at how long it took for Hitler to come into play, if you study history, how long it took Hitler to go from the ranks all the way up to the top to then starting a Second World War, he, over a long period of time, changed the mindsets of the people towards the Jewish community, right? And to anybody that was an outsider that wasn't blue eye, blonde hair, so on and so forth. And it wasn't overnight, at least in American schools, is we read this section of history in our history classes. We see it over a 20-year, 30-year time frame. We see it in a book, and we immediately think it happened overnight. Because in schools, we can't really conceptualize 30 years because we're only 15 years old at that time. In reality, groupthink is becoming more and more prevalent. Now, I'm not saying that that's a good thing or a bad thing. All I'm saying is, just like Elon Musk talks about how AI could be used for very good things, and I use AI every single day. We use AI every single day. One of the reasons why he left OpenAI, in other words, ChatGPT, was because security around the AI, how powerful AI can be to manipulate other people. The idea around groupthink is actually good in a lot of cases, right? As a Christian myself, I think groupthink is great. I think that we should be honoring God with what we're doing. And that's a good version of groupthink. Where a bad version of groupthink is where we ostracize a specific race or people or person or gender and say, well, these people are lesser than us. They at that point then should not be allowed to have the promotion or even live as we saw what Hitler did. It's very disturbing, because now, me being an outsider, not doing and falling into the trap of groupthink, now I see people are being Hitlerized, manipulated to believe certain things are true. And I'll give you an example. The Atkins diet was such an acidic diet that they would literally they'd have to pee on a strip to make sure that their pH wasn't getting too acidic, because it was so salty. If you look at what Atkins was saying, it was basically a calorie deficit, getting you away from the lower caloric intake. It's basically the whole idea around you can take a red pill and, lose a bunch of weight. It's not about how much you eat, it's about what you eat. For instance, that was a group think, okay, that ended up turning out to not be a good thing, right? People were dying from it. People were extremely ill and sick from this. They weren't drinking enough water. Their kidney functions, liver functions were shutting down. But there's a difference between marketing and quote unquote science. Understanding the difference between marketing and actual facts. There's a common saying that facts don't care about your feelings. That's been, popularized by some guy on the internet. I agree with that. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have our own opinion, because I believe everyone has a God-given right to their own opinion. But when there is facts, there is a difference between, okay, this is my experience, understanding the levels of truth, experiential truth. Okay, so like for instance, on the freeway, on the 215 in Las Vegas, I always slow down at a specific area because the only speeding tickets I've ever gotten were in that area. In my experience, my truth is I'm always going to get a ticket right here. But there's levels of truth, right, that people have experience, that people have from some sort of a hierarchy, right? Their parents, God, religion. From there, you have the ability to think. And right now, there's a problem with seeing so many people get to a point where they are no longer thinking for themselves. They're just thinking about whatever the headline says in an article or Facebook post. Whatever that says is now what I believe. The news used to broadcast, hey, we're still diving into this. In America, you are innocent until proven guilty. The news used to have that same approach. It was they were innocent until proven guilty. But if you're in the military of the United States, you are guilty until proven innocent. So now news profits work, rather. They profit based off of views, which then they can sell ad times. Just like with Facebook, they sell eyeballs, right? The more eyeballs they get, the more money they can sell to advertisers. We are an advertiser. The key here is that news broadcasts used to show innocent until proven guilty, and now they are doing the assumption close where they are assuming guilty before they have any facts. I'll give you an example. Jesse Smollett, okay, not a very popular topic, but I just saw that he's about to get out of prison. Everyone thought that guy was innocent. And it comes to find out that he staged the entire hoax of getting beaten up by some people of the opposite political party as him. And that's why he's in prison, and he's about to get out of it. He's about to finish his 4-year sentence. We have to be very mindful when things do happen, is to, instead of reacting, I see this a lot where people will react on the internet about, oh my God, I can't believe that he would do something like this. It's like, okay, well, let's wait until some of the facts come out or some of more details come out so that you can make an opinion. It's just so much easier and less brain decision and less brain power to just groupthink. And that's one of the last greatest things about America, is that we still, at least as of today, have the ability to think for ourselves. This is something that is not incentivized anymore. If you're a thinker for yourself, you're now outcasted. If Elon Musk wasn't a thinker for himself, he would have never started SpaceX. He would have never started Tesla. If Nikola Tesla wasn't a thinker for himself, he would have never started the radio. Oprah, if she wasn't a thinker for herself, she would have never gotten the show Oprah, because they would have been taught just to submit, which is unfortunately what I've talked about a lot on my social media, is the public schools, even the universities, are training us to be insiders rather than outsiders. But in reality, there's more fulfillment and joy and happiness on the outside than it is on the inside. Because if you're on the inside and that's not truly who you are, and you have a God-sized calling to do something big, which I think all of us do, then I don't know how you can be a group thinker and ultimately happy, because you're not living to your fullest potential of what I believe, God, the creator has called you or called me to be. So if you're not living a fulfilled life right now, I would question whether or not and why you have the thoughts and you have the ideas and you have the opinions that you have. I was on a call with a client this morning. She was mentioning how she went to school because she wanted to get this job. She knew that would make her parents happy. I'm not saying to go against what your parents want, but I would also question, is that where you're going to be most fulfilled? Is that where you're going to have the most happiness and joy? And most Americans, unfortunately, they just settle. And it's so depressing. It's disturbing. I actually lose sleep over it. I get emotional about it because I know that if we can just have more good people with money, that we can solve the majority of the problems, and not just in America or in our country or in our state, but in the entire world. If you like this, make sure you subscribe for more. Like, comment, send this to somebody that you think is cool. If you think I'm crazy, just tell me, Mikey, you're crazy. Or if you got something out of it, let me know in the comments as well. Cheers.